Gizmo!
Gizmo!
Wake up, you little prick!
Get the fuck up!
Why? What?
Invaders have just rammed a hole in our garden wall.
I must have fallen asleep.
You need to get up. We need weapons, not this fancy-ass shit.
We are about to launch a counter-offensive. We need sickles and scythes and weaponry.
No, whatever this is, it sounds like a bad idea. Don't do it.
We're being invaded. We will not go empty-handed.
We are about to conquer a production known as P.I. Undercover New York.
What? Are you serious?
Oh, yes.
Right now?
Yes.
Are they?
Wait!
Gizmo, wait!
Where?
Gizmo,
Where?
You cannot take them on single-handedly.
Hello, all. Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I am Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Tonight, we are covering What We Do in the Shadows, Season 6, Episode 8, titled P.I. Undercover New York. Please note, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, come back and check us out after you finish the episode. Would you please share the synopsis with us, Mandy?
I will. And by the way, that was my sexy police procedural music I was doing when you were saying P.I. Undercover New York. Colin and Nadja have a couples night with an old friend while Nandor and Laszlo battle the film crew that have invaded their neighborhood.
First impressions of the episode. I liked the episode, but it was because of the B plot that this episode was a standout. I enjoyed the filming part, but it wasn't the best. But the dinner party portion was better than everything else that happened in the episode. I loved seeing Colin, who's normally the one making everyone uncomfortable, being the one who's uncomfortable. And to see Nadja try to act as a normal human was great. The guest stars were awesome. I give this episode 4 sweated shirts out of 5, but only because of the B plot.
Well, I feel like I don't even know. I feel like the B plot was actually the P.I. Undercover New York, the P-Uni plot.
You?
Yeah, because it's funny that you said that because I have 2.5 pages of notes on the Nadja and Colin plot, but I have like less than an entire page for the other. But I think that was really the filler part of the show. And I think, and my first note here is actually, this one feels like a gift for the crew, because I think that they had this idea of what they were going to do with, and I have a lot to say about why they may have picked that theme for Colin and Nadja. And I think that they didn't have a whole lot of extra time in the plot for one of their other B plot storylines or B storylines. And so this was like a funny, just kind of, I think it was a lot of inside jokes for the crew and staff that have worked on that show all these years, and kind of an homage to them, probably because it's the last season that they were there.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because there was a lot of just jokes about how expendable PAs are, and, you know, like Nandor immediately becoming a PA. And I don't want to get too far ahead in my impression. I will just say, before we move on to like specific moments, that I keep saying this, but these 2 episodes are now my new favorites. Like, I loved both of these very much. I give it 5 sweated shirts out of 5.
Well, let's move on into the first part of the podcast, where I am calling Shoots and Swag. We open with Nandor's confusion about them shooting. And of course, Nandor, being Nandor, thinks they're going to take over the neighborhood. And so he, in typical Nandor fashion, overreacts.
He's just ready to fight. Yeah, he says, what are we shooting? Dogs? Criminals? Like, whatever it is, he's down for it.
Yeah, until they mention Dolly. And he's like, no, that's not going to stand.
Yeah, the PA, they said they're filming this cop procedural in the neighborhood, and Nandor and Laszlo decide that they're actually under attack at first. And so they go out to find out what's going on, and they find out that it's just they're using it to film scenes. And they find that out from the first PA that gets killed because
Adam,
he
poor
gets
Adam.
on their nerves. Yeah, Adam, R.I.P. Adam. He's
Oh, it's
only there.
Brad.
We only had you for a few moments. It was Brad.
No,
I didn't even catch
sorry.
the name.
Adam is the one who gets killed. Brad is the one Nandor thinks is super tall because the tin
Right. Yeah. Oh man, I forgot to write that line down. Yeah, like it's the dead one. Oh, he's very tall.
Yeah.
Now they're furious because all these actors have taken over their street. So Nandor and Laszlo are going to go out and they're going to clear this up. But Guillermo is very excited because this is his
so
favorite show.
excited. I have never related to Guillermo more than I did in this episode.
Yeah.
Because you know how much I love my shows.
For sure. Yeah.
And when I get latched onto a show so much that I may or may not do a podcast about it, I am Guillermo, and I felt everything that he gave.
Like his excitement for meeting the guy.
And the fanzine. He made a fanzine.
Where the lead actor is Kevin Pollak, the guy that was from Usual Suspects and a lot of other...
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He played the father-in-law.
Yeah, that's right. And he's funny. Of course, he's been around forever. He's been in a lot of things. But I love that he's like, I just guessed about the chest hair. It definitely looks like Kevin Powell's chest hair. I've seen him in movies where he's got his shirt off. He's a hairy sumbitch. So it definitely did work for him. But the dolly thing. So yeah, Nandor is out trying to find out what's going on. And the guy says that you've got the dolly in the shot, meaning the dolly from the crew. And Nandor's like, oh, they're going to shoot Dolly. Naja will be so upset. Absolutely not. So that's when it's on. It's game on after that.
I think it was great when he busts in and is telling Nandor what's going on. There's two parts that I loved. First is Laszlo's line, or I swear I get Laszlo. I just need Laszlo. Just one like group
what
name.
What is it about trying to say everybody's names?
It's too much.
Yeah, I don't think they thought of that.
When Laszlo has his talking head and he's like, Nandor thinks everything is a war. And of course you think we're going into the typical, but Nandor being Nandor. And then Laszlo's right up in the camera. This time I agree with him.
Yeah, he's with him this time.
Yeah, and then Colin Robinson is like, guys, it's just a TV show. And then he goes on to read his review as C-Rob 69.
He's reading like reviews of the show, and I love that he used the phrase cop-paganda. It's like cop propaganda because a lot of quote unquote woke people these days don't like cop shows. So they call TV shows that make cops look good cop-paganda. And it's such a hipster pretentious term, and then immediately Colin's like, oh, C-Rob 69, that's me. He totally forgot, because that's, if you'll remember, that's part of what he does as an energy vampire, is just go and try to drain people's energy through being an online troll, being obnoxious. But it reminded me of something, Becky. We talked and joked about like, oh, a moment here or there where I'm Colin or you're Colin, and I can definitely see us being Colin from time to time, but you know who is really Colin. And I'm not going to name any names, but I have a good friend, a former good friend that you and I both know. And if you think just for a second, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. He's incredibly pretentious, very banal, really drones on about crazy stuff that no one cares about. You unfriended him on Facebook 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh my gosh, that's a blast from the past.
Is he not Colin Robinson?
My gosh.
That is who Colin. It finally clicked for me. It was something about that phrase propaganda that just thought that sounds so much like him. And it was just a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, oh my God, he's an energy vampire. That is what
was why I couldn't take it, because he was just draining me physically.
Yes.
Well done. I like when they go and bust in on Gizmo, and before he even knows what they're talking about, he's already saying, this is probably a bad idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been there long enough. It's funny, like, I didn't see that kind of a show being Guillermo's type of thing. I was a little surprised by that part of the plot. Like, I don't know. I just didn't see Guillermo really being into cop procedurals. But you know what? I'm a huge Law & Order SVU fan. That's like one of the 3 TV shows I actually watch.
Yeah, so it's nothing surprises me really. with
with the
Guillermo.
show.
Or
Yeah.
this show in general. I mean, Nandor's favorite movie being the Magician movie. That came out of left field.
What was it? The Wonderful Burt Wonderstone or something
Yeah.
like that? Yeah.
We need to watch that one day. You'll understand.
Maybe we all have our own favorite cop procedural. I wonder, we should ask people sometime, like, do you have at least one that you watch? And it may be true that we all have at least one.
Mine? I guess mine would be The Rookie. I don't know if you've ever watched that. It's Nathan Fillion.
I know Nathan Fillion, yeah. Somebody else was in it that I really was. Angela Bassett in that?
No, she's in that's 911, the LA one. God, I know too much about television. But I used to watch Law and Order SVU, Law and Order CI. That's what made me laugh with Guillermo when he's going on about all the different shows attached to
the different brand, yeah.
But why this one is,
I love
is the best. It's
I gotta tell you, if I ever met Olivia Benson in real life, I would, and there's not many famous people that I would like to meet, but Mariska Hargitay I would literally die if her or Ice-T, who by the way is back with his punk band. If we could say anything else about the political dystopia that we're living in right now, at least it's brought Ice-T back to singing punk rock music. He was on Jimmy Fallon the other night with his band.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. Didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah. But one of the lines I thought was hilarious was when Nandor was talking to Guillermo about his zine. And he's like, I wonder if he could get the actor to sign his zine. And he said, oh, what was the name?
Cambodian.
And Nandor said, he wants a Cambodian to sign his what?
I wrote that down too. That was a good line. I love Nandor's naivete.
Me too. There was a lot of dumb Nandor in both of these episodes. Just a lot of like, oh, Nandor, you're pretty, but you're just not that smart moments throughout here. But so then they discover Laszlo and Nandor as they're getting ready to do battle with the crew that's taking over their street. Laszlo's beloved Shawnee
They've lost their greatest ally.
To the hordes that have taken over.
To the famous pig flowing through his...
Shawnee.
Yeah. I like their tactic is to take out the leader. And the way they're going to do that is to offer Cambodian a succulent Chinese meal. And Nandor's like, I have procured 3 prostitutes for your viewing pleasure. Come with me. I'm not going to kill you. Come with me.
That's not at all suspicious. And when he doesn't fall for it, he goes, but what about the prostitutes?
Yes.
Okay, but the succulent Chinese meal, that is a meme. Several years ago, this video started to go viral, and I have Googled this because when I heard it, I knew what it was from, but trying to describe it to you is very difficult because it's still not super clear on exactly who this guy was. But several years ago in Australia, it went viral in like 2009, but it actually happened in like the 90s, apparently. So there was this guy in Sydney, I believe, who was, there was a mystery of who he was for a long time. A couple of people were claiming credit for it, but they turned out it was this guy that was a famous credit card scammer. And he was getting arrested in Sydney for scamming this Chinese place. And as they were putting him in the handcuffs and arresting him, he was saying, what is my crime? Enjoying a delicious, succulent Chinese meal? It was so funny because Matt Berry could almost be basing his character on this guy because his voice, you'll have to listen to it when we get done because it is just as ridiculous and fruity as Matt Berry's voice when he does like the crazy pronunciations.
He's an actor, Nandor.
Yes. That is what this man being arrested, like, I want to know this guy. He was a lot of fun to hang out with, but that's what they were calling back to.
I like classic Nandor goes in for one task of getting the AD and he ends up getting sucked into the one thing he's supposed to be against.
It took them 3 seconds to make him a PA. Yes. I counted.
And he just totally gets seduced by the whole show business and him passing out cans. Yes. And the guy, he's like, I already have some. You see him right
on my
here?
Head.
Yeah. I just wanted to squeeze little Nandor right there. It was so cute.
That was one of the things I was talking about when I said I just get the feeling that a lot of that storyline was really just kind of a fun thing for the crew. Again, like the whole time, like the PAs are so expendable. They do a good job of kind of showing how they're very much the low man on the totem pole. Two of them get murdered and no one even notices.
Right.
Nandor walks into a trailer and 3 seconds later they've made him a PA and he's walking out. And that's how they get you, because they suck you in with the merch.
I like how Laszlo, this entire episode, until it finally comes to a head when they're fighting in the trailer, that he's acting like he's mad that Laszlo or Nandor is not focused on what he's supposed to be focused on. But in all actuality, he's just jealous.
Yes.
When he gets mad and what does he say about sabotage in French? Sabotage just means to go fuck things up.
Yeah, that was it. I thought that was another thing I thought was so funny was because I think even though I agree with you, and I can't wait for us to talk about the storyline with Nadja and Colin, my favorite line in this entire episode, and probably my favorite plot point, is the 3 soliloquies that Laszlo has where he's talking about who is in charge in TV shows. And he says, he gives this whole speech about how actors are idiots, which, wink, wink, because they're actors in a TV show, but he's sitting there talking about how actors are stupid and expendable. And then he's talking about the director and how the director is just this cruel despot, that he has no vision, that he's just stupid. And then the third one is where he goes on and on about how the real brains behind the operation are the writers, and that they are the ones that make everything happen, and they're the real power and all that. And you see in the background the writer sitting there.
She gives a grin.
Yeah, like she's writing all of this out, and that, that's the whole inside joke, is that she's written all of this, and it's, just all circling back to her fun little game that she's having with this episode that she's writing out as it goes along.
I think all of that was great, but I think what was even better is his breakdown of the sweated shirt.
The sweated shirt.
I rewound that so many times.
I want that sweated shirt. And I love Nandor says, you can only get this if you are the crew, specifically season 3. Aren't they in season 4?
Right. Yeah, that's not even the season that they're filming.
They literally bought him for old swag. It's not even current.
I want to pause this swag moment to talk about how amazing our old job swag was. When he got that sweated shirt, and it just made me think of all the cool things that we used to get back in the day. And I was like, I understand
for sure
Laszlo's jealousy when somebody was walking around in a cool hoodie or pullover or whatever. And I'm like, I want that. I really do.
Remember how great Christmas was in the office, though?
I was walking around handing out hundreds and
getting bonuses, candy everywhere, vendors bringing you chocolate every day.
It was epic.
Getting hammered. Remember people hooking up in the old guy's office?
I think one year they took us to, it was the Titan Stadium, wasn't it?
Yep.
For our Christmas party. And these guys, it's in the middle of the day and there's bottles of wine on every table. And
bottles.
We were on 2 separate buses. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
We got mad at each other, feeling like we were trying to one-up each other, and we are hammered, and we're trying to have this heart-to-heart conversation about how we're just the same, and we love each other, and oh gosh. That when I think of us back in the day, that's one of my standout moments, was us on each bus with the microphones.
We were it may be hard for the 4 people out there listening to believe this, but Becky and I used to be something of showboats who like to talk a lot and have other people listen to our opinion.
We were the entertainment.
We were, and we still are. Ooh, remember that one year Lisa got really mad because on my bus, I don't think this is the same year. I was doing Christmas carols with everybody.
That was the same year.
Okay, and then I'm not going to name names, but somebody, and I'll tell you who later if you don't remember who it was, someone in the office who also liked to be the center of attention but wasn't nearly as hilarious as we were, tried to jump up and like take over MC duties without permission, and Lisa got really mad about that. I was like, thanks, Lisa.
Oh, you'll have to tell me because I don't remember. Because I wasn't on that bus. I was over on the other bus.
Well, then when I tell you, you ain't going to be surprised when I tell you who it was. You'll be like,
Yeah.
"Mhm,
I
that
have an
sounds just-"
idea, but it doesn't, I don't think it's the same person anyway. All right, y'all. Sorry. We're going to digress and go back to the episode. But man, that was a fun trip down memory
That
lane.
was. So anyway, but back to the sweated shirt. Did you notice the line when when Nandor said you're stretching it, and Laszlo says, "Oh, wouldn't
Not
be the first time."
Oh my, I feel like this whole section was for that one line
Yeah,
for Matthew
yeah.
Berry to land. I really hated the whole fight scene, but because it gave us that line from Matthew Berry, I put up with it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. And so anyway, then they're fighting over the sweated shirt, and then they are like, what are we doing? You know, we're turning on each other. We need to go out here and take these people down. We need to wipe them all out. And then they go out and everybody's gone.
Well, the best tactic of war is to not fight at all. And Nandor, you sound just like a writer.
Right. See, that was another, I think, little winky note to, because they said to the writer of the show that she's the real brains behind the operation.
I thought it was great. They take credit for the fact that everyone is gone, even though they
did nothing.
As usual, nothing to do with making any of that happen.
Yeah, they did nothing. They just walked out and there it was. And so Guillermo's going to go over and he's going to talk to the, what's his name again?
Calbodian.
And I want to know where they come up with these names. And the guy's a real jackass to him. He's real rude to him. Like, you know, don't talk to me. Who do you think you are? So then the boys get a chance to do their thing. They get a chance to step in and defend Guillermo.
And then we have our next casualty. But what was even greater than that is them having to hand over all their swag after they killed the dude because they gave it to Guillermo. And Gizmo's. Now he's got a whole new name. Gizmo, his face, like smug face after he got all of the swag. He was so
happy.
But not caring at all that the guy he dressed up as for cosplay one year is dead over there.
Because yet again, Gizmo is a little bit of a sociopath. He's a little bit amoral. Yeah, he's got a bit of a selfish streak about him.
But I don't, after all these years, I just want to be like, get you some.
Yeah, and definitely he's earned it.
So anything else on Shoots and Swag?
No, I think we're good there. Like I told you, it's the next one that I'm with you. I mean, I did enjoy that, I think, more than you did because of the wink to the writers and just how I thought about. I just couldn't help but thinking about how sad that crew probably was to find out that this was their last season, because as we discussed a while back, I know I saw an interview with Harvey where he said that they thought they were going to get 7 seasons. So they found out just before filming started that they weren't. And so I just felt like this was like a fun thing for them.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine there were jokes that only they would get that were probably peppered throughout that episode. So it just kind of made me happy to think about them getting that little moment there.
No, and that makes it better looking at it from that perspective.
The dinner party. That's what I titled my part of that.
You got dinner party. I'm calling part 2 bras, baseball, and YouTuber.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I called it the dinner party because I absolutely believe that the reason that they chose this storyline is because of a so.
Are you talking about The Office?
Yes, because who does Joel turn out to be?
He's Zach Woods. He's Gabe from The Office.
Gabe. And
Nate
yes,
is
and
Colin
Mark
Robinson. So yeah,
Nate.
they're reunited.
So we've got two of my favorite characters from The Office that are reunited, and I genuinely believe that part of this storyline was an homage to that. Like, was a
When I saw who Joel was, I was like,
there's no way that was coincidental.
no. And there's another instance, we'll get to it here in just a second, that I think was another callback
Ooh,
to The Office. So we'll talk
Okay.
about that in a sec. But we start with Colin Robinson in the mirror brushing his bald head and referring to
Didn't even
himself as a
notice that he
stud.
was- I didn't even notice he was brushing his bald spot.
Yes, all while hyping himself up at the
Not
big
bad
stud
at all,
that he
you
is.
stud.
And then Naja calling him a creamy bowl of millet. Millet it's like quinoa. It's just a bland grain that healthy, which makes me think if Colin Robinson was a food, he would be millet.
She says, "Look at you, you creamy snake." And you know what? He does look like a pale snake. It does very much
He
describe
really does.
Colin Robinson a lot. But I love how she has a hard time with Joel again. What's a Joel? Joel. Took me back to Jess. Remember her lover, the reincarnated? His name was like Jesse or
Gregor.
something. Yeah, but she couldn't. But his human name was like Jesse or Jess or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
And she could never say it right. Like, it was just in more of Nadia thinking humans are basically like another species and she only kind of understands what it's like, which was a big theme here.
Right. I was going to say her portion of the whole episode goes to show how out of touch with humanness that she
Right.
is. But man, does she think she's got it.
She was only being nice to Colin because she was trying to experiment
wanted
with
in,
normal.
yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted in on this normal party. And I like that they are continuing this story of Colin Robinson looking for, he's lived such a solo life and he's looking for a friend, but it made me so sad. And she's like, "You don't have any friends?" He's like, "Yeah, I do. Monster and his boy Joel."
The monster and Joel are his only
I'm
friends.
like, oh, Colin Robinson. But it was sad that he didn't mention Naja, Nandor, even Guillermo. None of them.
No. Well, they are assholes to him.
Well, they are terrible, but it's very eye-opening that even he doesn't even consider the people he lives with
Yeah.
somewhat friends. His excessive use of the word bra,
What's up, brah?
that's Colin Robinson.
Yes.
But he thinks he's cool.
Yeah.
It's like Naja thinking she knows that what she's saying is accurate as relating to human ways.
Yeah.
And him thinking the word bra is still...
Yeah, it sounds like he's speaking a completely different language because he's such a dork that it just sounds completely ridiculous coming out of his mouth.
I thought of you when Naja, after she goes through her quote unquote winky fingers small talk, and she actually sneezes or says the word sneeze instead of sneezing.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, my allergies." A sneezing, a sneeze.
I did love that.
Sneeze.
Like, all of those human talking points that she came up with. Oh my God. I know I say a lot that I see a lot of myself. We say that a lot in these vampires, but it's true. Like, I hate small talk and she's not wrong. Like 90% of small talk that I have, I just working from home. I talk to you and my kids and my husband, and that's really it most weeks. So I feel like that's kind of what I sound like trying to have normal human interaction. And 90% of my conversations when I do have to go to work to like have meetings or whatever are around allergies. Allergies and what were the other things that she was talking about?
The Harris Potter quiz.
Yeah.
She got Slytherin. Oh,
Yeah.
and the online did you get that online? I love online.
I love online, like it's a place. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like it's a place you go.
But what made me think of you was when she says she wants to go and Colin Robinson calls her a nightmare in a Civil War ghost dress.
Yeah, I feel like it might freak him the fuck out. I'm just saying, maybe it's gonna be scary for him.
I'm like, why didn't she wear her office attire?
Well, honestly, it still looks kind of like a nightmare Civil War ghost when
That is
she's wearing
true.
office attire. She looks like what happened to my Barbie's clothes after I'd had them and cut on them.
Then they get to the house and Colin Robinson warning her of the dude talk and how it might get a little raunchy. And she's like, "What do you talk about?" And he's boobs.
I love how at first she has to drag it out of him. And at first she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, what do you talk about?" And he's like, "No, you know." And she's like, "No, come on, what do you talk about?" And he's like, "No." And then she starts to look kind of concerned, like, "Oh my God, what do they talk about?" And then he just goes, "Boobs." She just looks so disappointed. Like, of course, it's something lame. It's,
It's Colin Robinson.
it's Colin Robinson. What was I even thinking? Of course, that's what it was.
So then we get Joel answering the door, and immediately
Gabe.
they're both doing the "What's up?" which, if you remember, was a very big part of Michael Scottness. And there was one
I didn't even
episode
notice
where
that.
Michael,
Yeah, you're right.
Jim, and Dwight. Michael said it was just like it might have been the cold open. The entire cold open was just them
Yes,
saying,
I remember
"What's
now. I
up?"
totally
to each
forgot.
other.
Yeah.
So I think that was a callback. But we mentioned Joel is played by Zach Woods, and I think that was a wonderful reunion of Gabe and Nate from The Office. I'm not very familiar with the girl who played Becky, but her name is Kim Quinlan.
I don't know her. I don't remember seeing her or
She's
anything.
great, though.
I want to say while we're talking about, so again, I feel like this was an homage to the famous dinner party episode of The Office, which if you've never watched it, anybody out
It's
there,
the best episode of
it
The
is
Office ever made.
so deeply uncomfortable. It is a lot like this, only more uncomfortable than even this dinner party was.
Well, I wrote down, I love how awkward this is from the start. Nothing will ever be as great as Michael and Jan's dinner party, but this one comes very close.
Yes.
And just before you move on, if you don't start greeting me as "What the hecky, hiya, Becky," we aren't friends.
I've already got that in the plans. I move after I make the point I'm about to make because I want to make sure that I don't get many chances to talk about this scene, and so I don't want to skip it. But I definitely want to go back to the fact that her name is Becky. But before we get to that, so I'm very excited when I see that this is a Nate and Gabe reunion because I know this is not an Office podcast, but I have to tell you that Nate, but part of what made me so happy about Mark Posh being on What We Do in the Shadows is that Nate is hands down my favorite character from The Office of all time. I love him so much for a variety of reasons. He probably only did, you should go if you need something to laugh about in the next few days. I just was looking on YouTube today because I was curious if Gabe and Nate ever even had, because they were both minor characters, Nate especially, but even Gabe wasn't really a major character on the show for very long. But I wanted to see if they ever had any scenes together. And they did. They had one scene together. It was the Christmas episode where they're sitting next to each other when Dwight starts playing, like he's doing air guitar, like heavy metal air guitar. And I can't remember what song. I think it was a Trans-Siberian Orchestra, that Christmas song that they do. And they're like doing the headbang together, Nate and Gabe next to each other. But
That's awesome.
The line I wanted to mention, my favorite line from The Office all time, Nate was going to go work in the warehouse because originally he got hired as like Dwight had bought the building that they work in, that Dunder Mifflin is in, and he hired Nate as a handyman. But then in a later episode, Daryl fires the whole warehouse team and they have to hire.
No, they won the lottery.
That's right. They won the lottery and quit. So he has to hire a whole new team and he's going to hire Nate to work in the warehouse. And Nate
You can't
says,
hear.
Yes, Nate says, before I get started, I just want to tell you that technically I don't have a hearing problem, but when there are several people talking at one time, I can't differentiate from what I'm hearing. And then he reiterates it again later on when they're going and he sees Daryl and he's like, "Hey, Daryl, I already told Andy this, but technically I don't have a hearing problem. That is my hearing." I felt so seen the first time I saw that episode because technically I don't have a hearing problem. But when a lot of people are talking at one time, I do have a hard time hearing what people are trying to say.
And that was a very Colin Robinson moment in the Office too.
I would say Gabe is more Colin Robinson than Nate was, but Nate was pretty Colin Robinson too.
Oh, yeah, that hearing thing, that was And everybody was ignoring him. Nobody cared what he was
nobody
saying.
was caring. Nobody
It was
paid
very
attention.
Colin Robinson.
But that was what I was going to say is that while I was looking to see if they ever had a scene together, there's like a 7-minute clip of all of Nate's scenes on YouTube. If you're ever down or just need something mindless or stupid to watch, you should go watch it because I was cracking my face today remembering some of Nate's greatest hits.
It's so fun to watch Colin Robinson and Nadja try to navigate proper or what's acceptable PDA.
Oh my God. Did you notice he calls her girlfriend? Like it's so uncomfortable for him to call Nadja his girlfriend that he can't get it to come out sounding like a normal human.
Right.
This is my girlfriend.
It's like two separate words, but he's trying to make it one.
He's trying to be, they're trying so hard to make it look like they're a couple and they're just so not compatible that it's just awkward and leads to more discomfort.
The tonguing 1 second and then him leaning in for a kiss and she's like, no. And he's like, I don't get you at all.
Yeah, because she's just doing it for the bit. Like Nadja is strictly there. That's one of Ava, my daughter's favorite sayings is doing it for the bit. And this whole thing is just Nadja doing it for the bit. She's just in it to amuse herself and have some more deliciously mild human interactions. So she's not going to make out with Colin Robinson when there's nobody around to see it. That would be gross. What would be the point? But yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't get you at all. You're hot and cold.
Which is like a relationship.
I've been there.
I made a list of Nadjas. And I'm going to go through them. And if you want to stop and talk about any of them at any point, let me know. But first, it's, her, when she's being greeted, she tells him it's nice to pleasure. And then Joel asks. Yeah, and bows. And Joel asks why the cameras? And Colin Robinson says she's a YouTuber. And she's like, yes, I'm a YouTuber. And her show is called Carrie Bradshaw Walking. I love that Nadja is into Sex in the City.
If you search Carrie Bradshaw Walking on YouTube, you'll find me. So I tried and I did not find Nadja, but there are a ton of Carrie Bradshaw Walking videos on YouTube.
Oh, that was a big part of the show.
I hated that show.
I liked her thoughts on human women. They're brain dead bitches. Wine drinkers, belonging in the kitchen, and can I help you with the touching and the boiling?
Yeah, I'm so glad to help you with the touching and the boiling. It's like she was a human, but she's apparently forgotten like everything about human existence because it's all like she's an alien visiting a different culture.
And then her thinking that male conversations are just men talking about, ouch, my balls. I love that she used her brilliant powers of deduction to figure out that Becky's vagina is pulsing for Colin Robinson.
Pulsing for Colin Robinson. Hold on, though. I want to go back because I just noticed in my notes a line that I forgot when she was first introduced and came in. And she's looking around their house. Nadja's looking around the house and she's talking to naughty Becky. And she goes, your taste is just... And that's it. She can't say anything nice about her taste. So she's just leaving it at that.
Thanks. I like solid colors. And then Nadja's like, maroon.
Yeah, maroon. Oh, naughty Becky. Which Becky, you should not have been a Becky. I don't want to
you tell my grandmother that, because I was supposed to be something else.
I know, and I call you Scheherazade in my heart all the time, because you are not that bland, blonde lady that they're hanging out with. I just feel like I love Doris. You know how much I love Doris, but she did you wrong with Becky.
It's all right.
How did we, two of the weirdest chicks I know, end up with two preppy cheerleader names, Mandy and Becky?
Well, you say that as an insult, but I was a cheerleader.
I know you were.
I'm going to need you to not say that like it's a bad thing.
I'm not saying a cheerleader is a bad thing, but you were a cool cheerleader.
That is true. I was.
You were not the stereotypical cheerleader. And that Becky very much looked like she probably bullied some chicks in homeroom.
Well, she definitely bullies her husband.
I think she has lots of Lululemon in her drawers. I'm just saying, we deserved cooler names.
when the fire alarm is going off and Nadja's trying to soothe Becky and she starts making jokes about smoked salmon and cream cheese.
Yeah.
My last major Nadja point, and then I want to go on into Colin Robinson and Joel. When Nadja tells Colin Robinson to just stick your beak in her and be done with it.
Beak in her. Oh, but before that, when the light goes off for Nadja, and then she realizes that Becky gets Nadja a love. Becky is pissy to Nadja from the moment that they get there. And she's deeply flattering to Colin Robinson, and she's an asshole to her husband. Like, you can tell it's so uncomfortable initially Nadja is oblivious because she's just enjoying playing human and being one of the brain dead bitches. But eventually it starts to become really obvious that this woman does not like her husband, but she seems to like Colin. And then the guys leave the room and leave them alone. And she flat out is just rude to Nadja and tells her, that Colin is this great guy. And he doesn't just sit around and talk about his balls all the time, that he's deeply sensitive.
He's
and
different.
So you see the light bulb go off in Nadja's eyes. And then she says, Becky is rock hard in love with Colin Robinson. And my note here is, I don't know what you're going to end up putting as the audio at the beginning of this show, but I nominate that line.
Yeah, I've already done it. It's not that, but that is a good one.
Well, because it took me for a moment, because I've already told you that I had the light bulb moment that Colin Robinson reminds me very much of my old friend.
Ah, yes.
And so I had a delicious moment imagining you being rock hard in love with that guy.
Ah! Gross.
Becky, you love who you love. Love is love.
Yes. And dang, busted.
Is your vag pulsing for him?
Ew. Okay, cut. No. Oh, you are so gross.
Okay, all right, we can move
You lost
on.
me on that one. While we're talking about pulsating, the best line in this episode, or best moment line, however you want to put it, when Joel, it's the reveal of Becky and Joel's miserable marriage, and he's bragging about the bathroom, and he wants to show it to Nadja, and Becky says, "Good luck." And Nadja, super serious, "Is it dangerous?" Absolute excellent delivery by what's her name, Natasha, that plays that. I laughed and laughed. I picked the most random things.
No, it's just boring.
Tickled about.
You know what my favorite line was from that part of the episode was when they're going to play games, and he suggests Pictionary. Joel suggests Pictionary, and Becky's like, "You don't want to play that. That's stupid." And very serious. This is a moment that Colin Robinson actually reminded me of myself. He's very serious, and he says, "If it's anything like reading the dictionary, then yeah, I do." It reminded me of when I was a kid and my friends would come over, and the house that we moved to when I was 10, the old man that we bought it from had an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannica encyclopedias, and I would sit and read the encyclopedias while my friends were just sitting there bored out of their heads and staring at me. So that took me back.
That's cute. I can see little nerdy Mandy. Colin Robinson watching 100 hours of baseball. By the way, go Mets.
So he could be friends talk to him about baseball.
And then he's into Top Chef now.
Yeah. So he has to go bone up.
Yeah. So he goes to do his Winky Fingers number 3.
Yeah.
Like this memory. And this was me.
Oh,
because there
perfect.
are so many things that I bring up to friends that is like the biggest moment in my head, and they're looking at me like I have no idea what you're talking about.
And it's slightly uncomfortable. Yeah, he just feels like a dumbass because he thought it was hysterical, and instead Joel's looking at him like, gross.
Yeah. And so he goes to learn about that. And then when Nadja goes to look at the dangerous bathroom, Becky snuggles up to Colin Robinson. Is it Prosh?
Prosh. Yeah. I have a hard time with it myself.
every scene in this episode, but
He
he
does.
shone like a light when that whole thing was happening. I was taken a bit aback when Joel just comes flat out and asks Colin to bone Becky.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little shocked by that too. And I obviously so was Colin.
And if it's any consolation, I will be there. I will have eyes.
No, it is not a consolation at all.
And Colin Robinson's like, oh, I'm out. I'm done. But then he tries again to get something normal going with Joel by suggesting bowling. And Joel's like, sure, yeah, we'll go bowling and you can come back and fuck my wife. And Colin's like,
Yeah, poor Colin. And then Nadia's like, I'm sorry Joel turned out to be a depressing pervert. I mean, I quite liked it, but I know you were looking for a less sexual friend.
and she was so sweet to Colin.
She really was.
On that walk home. And I loved her little puffy jacket. And I also loved that they aren't super hiding her pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am so glad that they're not making a thing of it, but they're not forcing her
to like hold purses in front of her and hide
the
behind
entire
couches.
time. Like they're just letting her beautiful pregnant body be just be. And I think that's great.
It works because Nadia has always worn crazy outfits and a lot of frills and furbelows and whatnot. So it's not really that outrageous for her to just add a little bit more damask to her dress and few more bows and ribbons and go on down the road. You really almost can't even tell.
I think I
did like her puffy jacket.
Yeah.
Took me way back to
that.
the 90s and TLC.
Oh, I've got a puffy jacket hanging in my closet.
I think I had a silver one at one point, but I think I still have one in.
Mine's black, but everything in my closet is black.
We should redo the waterfalls video one day.
I think we should.
Don't go chasing. I used to think that was Don't Go Jason Waterfalls, but anyway, go ahead.
Wow, that's not one I've heard before. Her justification for humans having issues is because we spend all our time trying to be normal and suppressing our sexual selves that we just end up squirting ourselves to death.
Oh, Nadia, you're a poet.
Maybe you're a Carrie after all, Colin Robinson says. And then we lose our third assistant or third
PA
person on the crew. When one girl just walks up to Nadia and she's like, I don't think so. And she's dead.
Yeah, there she goes. Another PA by the wayside. You know what we didn't talk about was the scene where Nandor got stuck in the scene. Like they're recording the show and he's just hiding behind the bush in the background.
Which I saved for the final part of the episode, part 3, which I'm calling File Save. This scene where Colin Robinson doing his Carrie Bradshaw impression was great. But I loved when he said it's cheesy, but he said if we stop saying cut, would we get a little more action?
You know, it was clever, but I also thought he didn't want no more of that action. Like, he was perfectly happy saying cut because he didn't want to get in with Becky and weird-ass Joel.
No, but I don't think he means sexual action. I think he means time with friends and activities and whatnot.
Right.
That's what I think he means.
Well, it was cute. It was very cute to see him and then the monster comes in, his only other friend, and all he says to him is, Colin Robinson, shut fuck up.
Colin's face, and that's when he's like, File Save.
Yeah, bless.
To go back to what you mentioned earlier about Nandor being in the shot when Guillermo's watching the show, all being all cute with his popcorn, which again is me, and him seeing Nandor, they left it in that he got in the shot and was hiding behind the bushes. Anything else about PIUNY New York points that you want to talk about before we get into final thoughts?
The only other thing I think I missed is that when they were leaving and Nadia was trying to tell them thank you for inviting her, she said it was swirl instead of swell. I think she was trying to say swell, but she's so awkward being a human that she was just like, thank you, this was swirl. I love it when she does that.
She's epic. My final thoughts on this are hats off to Natasha, Mark, Zach, and Kim for stealing the show at the dinner party. I never thought I'd see an episode where Colin Robinson and Nadja are the normal people in the room.
That was brilliant. I didn't think of it from that aspect, but you're right. That was brilliant.
What are your final thoughts?
I loved it. I think I liked it maybe a little more than you did, even because I definitely thought it was one of the high points of the season. And I really enjoyed the whole little joke about having the TV show being recorded on their street. I thought that was very, very funny. I loved the little asides. I loved thinking that some of the people on the crew maybe got to sneak into the cast or put in little jokes that they would get that nobody else would get.
When you bring up that, it makes me appreciate that part of the episode more.
One of the reasons I think the show doesn't get more love and I think will become more of a cult classic as it ages is because it is so dense with double meanings and behind the scenes things, little inside things you have to really be paying attention to the background. You know, as we've mentioned before, there are things I watch this 4 or 5 times sometimes and I'll still be getting things from it. And I'm not going to bore everybody, especially Becky, by going into my love for Kendrick Lamar. But I feel like this show is the Kendrick Lamar of TV shows because there's layers upon layers upon layers to every joke. And I just love the whole idea that the writer, what is the word I'm looking for? There's a word for like when something is meta. It was very meta that the writer is writing the episode and it's all being acted out in front of her. And that girl, I wonder, like I meant to look and see if the girl that played the writer on the show was actually one of the writers, but like her little winky face at the camera, smirk at the camera, that just, I loved that. I loved that moment. It was a highlight of the season for me.
It was very cute. All right. Well, let's move on to feedback.
Yeah, we got voicemail from our friend Steve Brown. So let's hear what he has to say about episode 8.
Hello, Becky and Mandy. This is Steve, and this is going to be What We Do in the Shadows, episode 8, PI Undercover New York. Let's see. Are they going to do the dun-dun like Law & Order, or is this more like a CSI thing? Nandor not understanding the television speak. 10-1, how tall is he? Colin Robinson just said the title of the episode, mic drop. Colin Robinson's screen name is C-Rob69. Nandor just said the title of the episode too. Mic drop. I can't believe they're getting weapons out of Guillermo's shed. Yeah, I said Guillermo, not Gizmo. Come on. How puny. And yeah, they're saying the title a lot, but I'm not even going to acknowledge it every time. Oh, his Joel is Gabe from The Office, right? I don't remember the actor's name, though. We agree about baseball. I'm not a baseball fan. I know that seems weird, probably. Whoa, that's Kevin Pollak. As, what is it, Cal Bodian? Yeah, nice. Ooh, Nadia, her vagina is pulsing for you. You. Uh-oh, it looks like Becky does have a thing for Colin Robinson. Everybody calls him by both names all the time. Becky and Joel are into some kinky stuff. Laszlo's commentary on the writer and director was great. Probably, I go and say one of the best parts of the episode so far. Oh, Nadia, how many bodies are behind that shrub now? So is Colin Robinson writing this episode now? Because now we have Guillermo with Kevin Pollak and the monster there at the end is great. And Guillermo watching the episode. Okay, I guess Colin Robinson was just writing it down in his diary. All right, on to episode 9.
Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate you so much for continuing to be with us on this journey. Please keep the feedback coming. And if anyone else would like to leave us some feedback or just say, hey, you can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to what'sontonight2@gmail.com. And that's what's on tonight, the number 2@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comment section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can be found on Instagram as well at What's On Tonight Podcast and the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a review, comment, and or share on your podcasting app of choice.
Next, we continue our coverage of What We Do in the Shadows Season 6 with Episode 9 entitled Come Out and Play.
So, Mandy, do you have any podcast recommendations or anything that you would like to
I
share?
do have something I would like to share, and it's going to take me a second here because I had it pulled up while I was waiting, but my phone has gotten rid of it now. So, a good friend of mine has started, excuse me, with some other people. She has started a nonprofit that is called Launchpad, and it is an opportunity for kids who are young adults who are experiencing being unhoused to find somewhere that they can sleep for the night. And it is, you can find them at NashvilleLaunchpad.com. And it is dedicated to creating a safe spaces that affirm the rights and dignity of LGBTQ plus young adults. And it is to create a network of temporary, safer, street-free sleeping shelters for unhoused young adults, which are open and affirming to LGBTQ plus individuals and their allies. So I encourage you very much to go and volunteer. They are needing donations. Of course, it's frigid out here in Nashville right now. So coats, blankets, all kinds of toiletry items that they could use. So yeah, I just encourage you to check them out.
Well, that's great. That's a great organization. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll have to look into see what I can do to help. I can be heard on Adrenaline Cinema podcast, where we're soon going to be covering the new season of Mayfair Witches. Wow, we're so excited. Winky fingers excited about that. Can also be heard on Panels to Pixels podcast and here on What's on Tonight podcast. As far as recommendations, I am stoked to have had the absolute pleasure of covering the movie 2000 cheerleading movie Bring It On with Penny and Kara from the Still Slang podcast over on Podtastica. The episode has been released, so you can find it on our What's on Tonight Facebook page. I also shared it on my personal Facebook page. So if anybody, if y'all would just give it a listen, I would greatly appreciate it. And please check out Mark and Laura's coverage of the 2024 episode, movie, The Crow, which can be found on Panels to Pixels. It's really, really good coverage and comparison on this movie versus the old movie, what they got right, what they didn't. Just a lot of interesting facts. Really enjoyed it. Want to give a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Corp Entertainment for giving us this platform and all the help you do to get us and the podcast together and released. Please visit the Pirate Corps website. It can be found on our Facebook page, and you can find our podcast as well as other podcasts. Take a look at the Slay Lounge podcast with Billy with an IE and Will, and give them a listen.
That wraps up our coverage of episode 8 of the final season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Becky.
I'm still Mandy.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight.